So Allie's Rocky Ride is a little bit different than Lindsay's Joyride. This time we're downhill mountain biking, doing a little bit of cross-country mountain biking. We're learning how to wheelie. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff, tackling some obstacles. And in this chapter, so we're like midway through the book, and the girls, so Allie, Lindsay, and Jen, are at this trail called Top of the World, which is, as you might guess, at the top of a mountain. And this is based on kind of a real place. And let me tell you, I've been to the top of the mountain that I was thinking about when I wrote this, and it is scary. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of write about this place that I know and this ride that really scared me and intimidated me, and let the girls kind of figure it out and get over it. So without further ado, here we go. Chapter 16 in Shred Girls, Allie's Rocky Ride. And if you want links to anything, I've dropped them all over in the chat on Zoom and on Facebook Live. So here we go. All right, welcome to the top of the world, Phoebe shouts, but I barely hear her over the wind whipping around us. It feels like we might fly away at any second, so I'm trying my hardest to keep my feet and the tires of my bike planted firmly on the ground, or at least as firmly as I can. Even though I know there's a lot of distance between me and the edge of that cliff, it still feels like if I toppled over right now, I'd roll right off the edge of the world, which I suppose is why this peak is named what it is. So here is the illustration in it for anyone who hasn't gotten the book yet. Probably my favorite illustration in the entire book, to be honest. We had to get up really early to be the first ones at the top so we wouldn't get run over by stronger, faster riders. That means we can take as much time as we want, Phoebe assured us. So 3 ski lifts later, we're finally here. The last chairlift was so tiny that it kept creaking loudly with every wind gust, making us all hang on for dear life. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't let us ride it if it wasn't safe, but it still felt like we were all about to plummet to the ground at any second. Jen was shrieking her head off, and I've never been so happy to be wearing a full face helmet for safety and to not have to hear her screaming at full volume. The top of the mountain is a lot colder than the bottom. It's almost freezing up here, and I can actually see snow capping some of the mountaintops that look a lot closer to us now than they did 3 lifts ago. Thankfully, we all have coats stuffed into our hydration packs. I look over and see that Lindsay has already pulled hers on, and her teeth are chattering a little bit. Jen is zipping her neon purple, of course, coat up, and Phoebe's yanking hers out, so I swing my bag around and do the same. When Jen doesn't make any snide comments right away about the color of my parka, kind of a puke green hand-me-down from my brother Leo, I feel my stomach unknot a little bit. We've been tiptoeing around each other lately, not having any real conversations. Jen does glance at my parka though, and I brace myself for her criticism. But instead, she gives me a thumbs up and says, that color is seriously trending right now. She pulls out her phone and hands it to Phoebe. Can you get a photo of the 3 of us? She asks. Phoebe nods and gestures for us to get closer together. As soon as I zip up my parka, I feel a lot warmer, and the landscape doesn't seem quite as desolate or scary as it did a minute ago when I was shaking. There's a tip to remember. Staying warm makes you stay a little calm. Lindsay would probably write that one down in her superhero training journal, so I make a mental note to tell her about it later. Between the warmth of my coat and the glow from the unexpected compliment from Jen, I'm grinning as Phoebe snaps a few photos of us with our bikes, looking windblown but fearless. Well, at least until we remember that we're going all the way down to where it's warm again. The first part of this ride has a tiny drop to it, Phoebe yells. Follow me closely and we'll stop at the first flat section to assess where we are. And remember, always have one finger over each of your brakes, but when you squeeze them, do it slowly and gradually. Don't panic. And on that drop, lean your weight back and let the bike flow over it. We all nod, not really looking at each other, sort of looking over each other's shoulders as we agree with what Phoebe's telling us. We're all a little too freaked out for eye contact, I think. Allie, you're on my wheel. Lindsay, Jen, follow her, but leave a few seconds between each one of you, she says. It's only a few minutes to get down this section. And with that, she's rolling away and onto the trail. I take a deep breath to steady myself. Doesn't totally work. And I push down on the pedals to head onto the trail. It starts out gradual enough. Phoebe's right. She's right there in front of me, and I don't even need to gently squeeze the brakes since we're not going too fast yet. In fact, it's feeling amazing. The view is huge, and you can see for miles, and the trail in front of me isn't hard to follow. I'm taking in the sights, looking to see if I can spot the lake in the middle of the forest where Leo and Stephen, my brothers, are riding today. Get ready, Phoebe yells, and that snaps me back to attention. It's a good thing too, because as we carve around a corner, suddenly the trail gets steeper and the speed picks up. And right in front of me is a rock that is going to force my bike to drop off. We've rolled over a few like this before, and Phoebe's coached us on it. Stay in that ready position, grrr position on the bike with knees and elbows just a little bit bent, like you're about to hit a jump on a BMX bike, like we did at Joyride. Let the bike do the work, she explained last time, and showed us how to help the bike unweight by almost acting like the drop was the top of a jump. Just let yourself get light over the bike when you're on the rock, and you'll float over like you're jumping it, she added, and don't hit the brakes right after. The process sounds a little confusing, but as I'm about to hit the rock and the drop right after, I try to get light while bending my elbows and knees and try really, really hard not to close my eyes. I come over the drop and try to think about gently bringing my front wheel up and staying light on the rear wheel so that both tires are in the air at the same time. For a split second, I'm floating. And then, thud, I'm already back on the ground. My tires reconnect with the ground smoothly with a light thump, but I'm not being jostled off. I almost touch the brakes, but at the last millisecond remember Phoebe's warning. Behind me, I can hear screaming, but I've come to realize that Jen's scream is not a bad thing. Trust me, I've heard her angry scream. It's a lot louder. Thankfully, there's a gentle straight slope for about 10 seconds, so I can recover a bit and prepare for the next corner. I remember Phoebe's advice. Brake ahead of the corner, not in the corner. So as it gets closer, I gently scrub the brakes to scrub a little bit of speed. Not that I'm going that fast, but it feels really speedy. As the corner looms ahead of me, I take my fingers off the brakes and start to lean into the turn with my whole body rather than just turning the front wheel to steer. The dirt is in perfect condition today, and I can practically feel the treads of my tires eating into it like it's made of Velcro. I've felt this in corners before, but never in a corner that was quite as tight as this, going quite so fast and up quite this high. It's exhilarating, and as I pull off at the next turn to wait for everyone else to catch up, I notice that I'm breathing hard and fast. My heart is pounding, but instead of feeling like I'm out of control and can't catch my breath, I'm just thrilled and excited. I feel amazing, I say happily when we stop at the flat section. That's flow state, Phoebe says, assessing my expression. Huh? I say, a little dreamily, like getting into the flow of the trail? Exactly, but you could be in flow state doing anything. Surfing, skiing, snowboarding, writing a really good essay, anything where you're in the state of complete focus and self-control in this idea of flow state. She explains, it's a psychological thing, not a physical one, though it definitely helps on trails like this. Why can't it always feel like that, I asked. Can't I hang out in flow state permanently? I wish, Phoebe says, smiling through her visor, but sadly, it is not an all-the-time thing, just when you're really in the zone. Head down to where the trail forks and I'll meet you, she adds, as Lindsay and Jen roll up behind me. I adjust my helmet and take off, trying to recapture that feeling. I've always been a solo rider, I realize, because even when Leo and Stephen rode with me, I was far back and I was chasing them. So I wonder if trying to keep Lindsay and Jen right with me when we practice has been making it harder for me to get into my own zone. It's something worth thinking about. I know that Jen sometimes does better when she has an audience and someone to chase, and Lindsay likes riding with people she trusts, but maybe I'm more of a lone wolf. I smile at that idea. Lindsay is more like Penguin, a small dachshund that only likes a few people and is shy around others. Jen is more like a friendly poodle who loves the attention of the crowd, but maybe my canine spirit animal is more of a solo type. Lone wolf. I really like that. And maybe if I casually mention it to Lindsay, she'll help me start it up as my nickname. Or at least maybe she'll draw me into one of her comics having a sweet wolf sidekick. And that would be cool. When I reached the trail fork, I realized that I did the flow state thing again, but a little differently. I was so preoccupied imagining how my new nickname would look on a sticker on my helmet that I totally forgot what I was doing, and it probably did my best, fastest ride ever. Well, it must be, since I can't see Lindsay or Jen yet. That was a great last section there, says a voice behind me, and when I turn around, I see that it's Scott, the boy that we met at the bike park a few days ago. Really? I asked, pretty psyched that someone else is there to see me riding. Absolutely. You hit that berm perfectly, he says. You're doing that downhill race this weekend, right? I haven't seen many girls shredding as good as you. I laugh when he says shredding, since he definitely doesn't know about our Shred Girls team name. We all are, I say, gesturing to Jen and Lindsay, who are just finishing their runs, and I wave to them to come join us. That way, I won't be talking to him alone. I know Jen still wants me to like him, but I look at him and I just see a perfectly cute boy, but perfectly uninteresting boy. Jen looks like she's debating leaving me alone with him, but Lindsay tugs Jen's arm and they both make their way over to where we're standing. Phoebe hovers casually in the background, but I can tell she's monitoring the conversation like an older sister would. Not that the conversation needs monitoring, but this is way better than what would happen if my brothers showed up. They'd be making faces and telling him all of the embarrassing stories about me. So what runs did you do today, he asks. That is the magical question for cyclists. It gives us a chance to brag, to make conversation about different features on different runs, and to basically gab away for the rest of the afternoon if we feel so inclined. We did top of the world, the easier way down, but it was still super fast, I tell him. There's no easy way down top of the world, he says, and he laughs. Every way is really tough and super scary. How long did it take you to work up to it? Well, we started with that run today, but we've only been on the beginner trails until now, I say. And he looks so comically impressed that I can't help but be, a little flattered. We practiced a lot on BMX bikes last month, though, I admit. And I've been riding mountain bikes since I was 5. Still, that's pretty amazing, he says. You must have a great coach. I'm tempted not to mention Leo. The last thing I want is to have Scott turn into a fanboy of my family, but I can't leave him out. Phoebe and my brother Leo have been really great, teaching us how to handle all of the steep drops and stuff. Your brother Leo's the pro racer who wins all the local races here, right? He asks, and I internally groan. That's him. Yep, I say, preparing for a total love fest. He's great, Scott says. So, that rock drop at the top of Top of the World didn't freak you out? Whoa, a bike guy who isn't going to ask about all of the details about my brother? I'm stunned and suddenly feel a lot more pleasant toward this guy, even if I'm not into him like that. Nah, that doesn't scare me. So what runs did you do today? I ask. Like I said, favorite question of cyclists everywhere. His face lights up as he starts telling me about his run down Top of the World. It sounds like he took a pretty similar route to us, but opted for one of the harder trails in the middle. I crashed pretty hard on that one little drop, though, he admits, and points up to the very end of the trail. How did you do that? It's always worth asking, so you know what to avoid doing next time. Nothing fun, he admits. I got unfocused because I was seeing that I was at the end of the trail, and I stopped paying attention. Now, that is a great reminder, Phoebe says, since she's been shamelessly eavesdropping on us for the last couple minutes. You're never done with the run until you're completely stopped. And even then, I've seen Leo fall over because he forgot to unclip from his pedal before he started to step off a road bike one time. Side note, who else has had that happen to them? I write what I know. Anyway, the idea of my brother falling so ungracefully sends me into a fit of giggles. He probably still made that look cool, Scott enthuses, and my bubble bursts a little bit. Of course Scott thinks Leo is the superstar cyclist, no matter how cool he's playing it. Now Scott will probably try to wrangle a dinner invite or something entirely so he can come over and meet my brother Leo. He's a pretty good rider, I say, instead of what I want to say, which is that he's kind of the bane of my existence. I'm still surprised that Scott doesn't try to angle for a meeting or a ride with Leo, and I'm pretty relieved. In fact, instead he asks if we're doing another run and if he can tag along. We all look at Phoebe, waiting to see what she says. Even though we got an early start, the trail that almost took us an hour to ride down, and my legs are feeling a little bit shaky. One more, she tells us, but do the short green trail. You never want to end the day with a tough trail when you're tired and you're much more likely to make mistakes. The 4 of us cram onto the big lift on the other side of the slope from the one we usually take, and we whoosh right up the hill. This time, Lindsay, Jen, and I actually managed to get on and off the lift without any trouble, and I giggle a little as Scott stumbles when he steps off. I know I shouldn't laugh, since I've done much more embarrassing exits, but it's nice to see that it's not only us having trouble on the lift. He doesn't seem that embarrassed by it, though. And when we get to the trailhead, I assume he's going to shove us to the side to try to drop in first, but he actually waves us through. What a gentleman, Jen says, laughing as she sails right by. I'm guessing she's pretty impressed, though, especially after some of the guys at the bike park a few weeks ago that we met. It's nice to know that there are more boys like Lindsay's friend Dave who actually appreciate that girls can ride bikes. I go behind Lindsay with Scott taking off right behind me. I think normally I'd be nervous, but with my shred girls right up in front of me, I just let it rip and have fun. I'm grinning the whole time we go down the hill, barely touching my brakes in the couple of sharp turns, but sailing through them, keeping up my speed. I can feel the traction from my tires. The wind is hitting the only parts of my forearms that aren't covered by an elbow pad or gloves, and the sun is shining perfectly. Honestly, it's the best round that I've had so far. When I get to the bottom, right on Lindsay's wheel, having caught her in the last few seconds, I realize that once again I've had a few minutes of that flow state that Phoebe was telling me about. That was wicked, says Scott, pulling off his helmet as we do the same. You're all really good. Way better than I expected. We all glare at him simultaneously. No offense. Really, he says, backtracking like it's his job. You know, just because we're girls doesn't mean we can't shred, Lindsay says proudly. Yeah, Jen agrees, and she looks mad. I nod. Suddenly we're right back on the same team, and my annoyance with her is forgotten. We're banded together against a bigger enemy, people who don't think that girls can shred on bikes. I meant you're totally new at this whole thing, right? He tries to explain. I almost feel sorry for him because he looks really upset that he might have offended us. I'm so sorry, he adds, and he looks sincere. It's okay, just don't let it happen again, I say. I won't hold it against him too much. Now, we should probably get going and meet Phoebe before she starts wondering where we are. See you around, he says hopefully. Maybe, Jen says over her shoulder as she pedals away toward where Phoebe parked. I grin and give him a thumbs up, and he looks relieved. Nice job keeping up, Lindsay says to him as she rides past, getting in one more little dig. She's really come out of her shell in the last few weeks.